Okay, so this is Kshetra Kshetrajna. So let us pay obeisance to Sri Radha Radha Govinda. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshulmitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Mena Bhotale Swayam Rupa Kadam Ayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavscha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vittam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakana Vittamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dino Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpaturabhyascha Kripa Sindhavevacha Patitam Nam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Ti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschadesha Tarine Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna. So let us start. So we were in the chapter 13 where it started with 6 questions from Arjuna. So he was asking what is Prakriti, what is Purusha, what is Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnanam, Vayam. Prakriti is the material nature, Purusha is the enjoyer, Kshetra is nothing but body. That's what Krishna says, it is the Sharira. Kshetrajna is the one who knows about the body. So who are the ones we know the body is the soul, Jiva, and the super soul, Paramatma. Okay. And Jiva knows only its body, whereas Paramatma knows all, every living entity, the whole material. Jnanam is the knowledge, Nyayam is the object of knowledge. So Krishna starts answering the 3 and 4. There are 3 sets. Prakriti Purusha is one set, Kshetra Kshetrajna is the second, Jnanam and Nyayam. So first he answers the 3-4. The question 3 and 4. The Kshetra and Kshetra, field of activities and the knower of the field. And there we talked about the analogy of the farmer plowing the land and the king. So the farmer is the soul, king is the super soul, the land is the Sharira. Okay. And then because of the desire we have and the thing we get about, depending on our karma and our desire, the mentality, we get the particular mind and body in our next birth. So that's how the king allows the particular land to the farm. So the farmer knows about its land and not the other lands, whereas the king knows all that. So we're using that analogy. Prabhupada explains the entire, the field and the knower of the field. Now we are coming to the next question about the process of knowledge. What do you mean by knowledge? And what is the process? And how this process of knowledge leads to liberation. So this is the knowledge, not the material knowledge. This is the transcendental knowledge. This is the knowledge process, how to get the transcendental knowledge to get liberation. Then we'll continue to the other questions. Okay. So further answers to process of knowledge and liberation. In this from 8 to 12 verses, there's a list of 20 qualities. I mean, the person who develops this knowledge would have developed these qualities. Doesn't mean that if you have these qualities, then you have a perfect knowledge. The underlining thing is you should have devotional service. One who takes to devotional service, then he cultivates these qualities. What are these qualities? Amanitvam, Adambitvam, Ahimsa, Shanti, Rajavam, Acharya Upasanam, Chaucham, Stairyam, Atma Vinigra, Indyarteshtu, Vairagyam, Ahankara. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi, Dukkha Doshanudarshanam, Asaktir Anavishwamra, Putra Dhara Grahatyasu. Nityam Cha Samachetvam, Istanishto Pratishtu. Mayi Chananya Yogena Bhaktir Avyavichari. Vivikta Desha Seritam. Aratri Jana Samshadi. Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam. Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam. Eta Jnanam Iti Prokta. Ajanam. So these are the 20, and Prabhupada gives a detailed purport into these or the different qualities. Okay. So starts off with the amanitva, means it's humility. Humility. Okay. Humility means one who is humble doesn't mean he's being fully in knowledge. No. What is the humility? It's not to be anxious to have satisfaction of being honored, because we are not the body. We are the soul. So the body keeps changing. So it is only when you are in the material bodily conception that you expect to be honored. You want to be people to honor you, to respect you. So first is humility, not to be anxious to have satisfaction of being honored. And pridelessness, understanding that you are not the body, and thus honor and dishonor is the same, because you are the soul. Soul is pure and it is that. So whether you're being honored or you're being disrespected, doesn't matter, because that is the pridelessness. And ahimsa, here it says, ahimsa means we think, no, we're not to kill others. It's not that alone. It's not to put others in distress. Through our body, through our interactions, through our body, mind, and speech, we should not put others in distress. We should actually elevate people to spiritual knowledge. That is known as practicing non-violence. Otherwise, you are practicing violence. Tolerance. We must be practiced to bear insult and dishonor from others. How do we get these qualities? How do we cultivate? That is only through devotional service. Here, simplicity. So straightforward that you can disclose the truth even to lead a simple life. Most of the Jiva Goswamis, they used to live a simple life, and I understand. And then accepting a spiritual master, Acharya Upasana. This is essential. Otherwise, you will never be able to get the knowledge. You will never be able to cultivate the knowledge unless you have that submissive attitude. Unless you accept saying that you don't know anything and you accept a spiritual master to give you instructions and to lead you in this path. And otherwise, if you think that you know everything, then you will never be able to. So accepting a spiritual man, starting the process. That is, it is very essential. And so we should be cleanly inside as well as outside. How do you do that? Externally is the body, internally is by bathing. Chanting is internal. That is for the soul. Anathas, all our pride, envy, anger, and all that will go by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Then steadiness. You should be determined to make progress in spiritual life. That also matters. How we are determined, how we are regular in our sadhana, how we are thinking. Only that will take us to the thing. Self-control, Atma Vinigra. Reject anything which is unfavorable to spiritual advancement. And also it means to control your senses, not to regulate your sense gratification. And anything which is favorable, you do it. And if it is unfavorable, to reject that. Renunciation of sense objects, not to cater to unnecessary demands. Gratified only to keep the body fit for what we should have for devotional service. Ahankara. Ahankara is that I am this body, I am doing this. This is mine, this is thing. So we should accept that we are the Lord's servant. So these are the qualities. Starting and some more is there. And most important is the accepting a spiritual master. And it starts with humility and pridelessness. And then perceptions of evil. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha. So regularly hear about these from the proper source. Become disgusted with material. Because material life is full of these four miseries. All are going through birth, death, and diseases and the old age. So no one is spared by that. So we keep hearing about the proper source, about the life perceptions of evil, then detachment. Be ready to sacrifice everything for Krishna or Sakto. No entanglement with wife, children. Doesn't mean that no entanglement that you should renounce them, but you should have affection by them and you have to do duty for them, but don't get attached to it. I mean, by getting attached to them, you will be, no, it won't be in a Krishna consciousness. So we should practice it if you can do. They say you can renounce it if it is unfavorable Krishna consciousness, right? Even-minded, nitya cha samachittatvam, not elated or distressed at material gain or loss by performing unbreakable devotions. So this is the most important. Unbreakable devotional service is the only one. You might be humble, you may not be proud, you may not be thing, but if you don't have any devotional bhakti towards the Lord, then this knowledge, these cultivated qualities are useless. If you start engaging yourself in Ananya Bhakti, that is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, and Atmanivadam. So any of these 9 process starts for us, the neophytes, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam. That is Shravanam, hearing about the Lord, hearing Krishna Katha, then doing chanting, glorifying the Lord by chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, then Smaranam, always remembering it. That starting in that, if you engage, then slowly all these qualities will start cultivating. Aspiring to live in a solitary place. That means you don't mix with materialistic people. Try to live in the association of devotees. At least then you will be in the same atmosphere. Detachment from the general mass of people. Accepting the importance of self-realization. That means you can understand what is our purpose in life so that we can give up unnecessary activities, wasting our time. Philosophical search, tattva gnata, rejection of useless research. So what is this? Qualities, that is by engaging in devotional service, this is the process of knowledge. So by doing, what is this knowledge? It's a process by cultivating this. That is, we understood what we have. No? We understood we are the soul, we have a body, and we have the super soul. The soul and super soul resides in every body, right? And we have this material body, and we saw all the 24 elements of the body. And we saw the interactions and how the sufferings and happiness and all whatever, it's the interactions which the soul interacts with the body and the mind. And what is this knowledge? The knowledge what we need to get is defining. The Lord says it should end in bhakti. Unless it ends in bhakti, that knowledge is not knowledge. It's just ignorance. And Acharya Upasana, how do you can get it? Through the Acharya. So humility, non-violence, self-control, detach. And these are some of the important ones. If you start cultivating with the guidance of the Acharya, then you are in the process of knowledge. Knowledge which, and what is help us is the real method of acquiring knowledge. Anything speculated beyond these items of knowledge is ignorance. That's what the Prabhupada writes in the purport. So now we understood the knowledge, jnanam. What is the object of knowledge? Is to know the relation between the soul, super soul, and the body. So actually the object of the knowledge is the super soul. Soul can know the super soul, who is the object of knowledge and who exists everywhere and pervades everything. He has transcendental senses and the source of all our senses. He is unattached and maintains it. So in these verses, there is a description of the object of knowledge, that is about the super soul. And the one in only the devotee can understand the field of activities, process of knowledge, and both the soul and the super soul. Non-devotees never accept that. They are stuck in the material bodily platform. So if you want to know that, you need to only a devotee, only you are in the devotional service. So that's what Krishna says in these verses from 13 to 19. Object of knowledge is what? To know the soul, we are the soul, and we have to know about the super soul who resides in us. Okay. I shall now explain the noble, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Here in this verse, Krishna refers Brahman. The Brahman is nothing but the spirit, that is the soul, which is subordinate to me. That means Brahman in this verse refers to the soul. And everything lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So, in this, he's telling to the soul, addressing the soul, saying, now I'm going to tell you about the super soul. And the soul is subordinate to me, the soul. So, the super soul is beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So, name knowable. Soul and super soul are the real objects to be understood. Okay. Then, first we are understanding about the soul. That is, we are understanding about the form, right? And then we are going to understand the super soul. Vijnana Brahma, given in the purport, is the living entity. Ananda Brahma, it's the technical. It refers to super soul. Okay. Now, what are the benefits of knowing the relationship? Is we can relish the nectar of life. So this is what. That means we are trying to understand this knowledge. Object of knowledge is super soul. Then we understand, then we'll be able to relish the purpose of this life. Sarvata pani padam tat, sarvato shi shiro mukham, sarvataha shruti loke, sarvam avarti sthiti. So, super soul is everywhere. His hands, legs, his eyes, heads, and faces, yes, ears, everywhere. In this way, he exists, pervading everything. Whereas the soul is only pervading in one particular body, right? Whereas the Paramatma, he pervades everywhere. Hands, legs, all extended. It's there in everything. His eyes, heads, face, his ears, everywhere. He pervades everything. So, but that is the difference between the soul and the super soul. The super soul is only pertaining to one, whereas Paramatma is Sarvata. Sarvata, Sarvam, he pervades everything. And like super soul is the thing. This is a description. It says super soul is all pervading and is only describing. It's not the soul is all, because some of those Mayavadis, they think, no, after leaving the body, we merge with the super soul. We merge with the Brahma Jyoti. It's not that. So we are still identified as a soul only, but we don't merge with the Paramatma. Paramatma is everywhere. And is the original source of all senses. It is without senses. Because his senses is not material. It is transcendental. Even when he came in the Vrindavan as a Krishna, he came in with his internal potency. He was still transcendental. Though he appeared to be like a baby, but he had all the powers. He had all the things. And he could do everything. See? And even but he didn't grow old like us. He was still young, even when he grew. So this body he has, his senses, is transcendental. He is unattached, although he is maintainer of all the living beings. Yes, okay. It transcends the modes of nature. At the same time, he is the master of all modes of material nature. So, Sarvendriya is the original source of all senses under Sri Krishna. So, he is the Paramatma. So, here the super soul, the way he pervades and the way he has the senses, this is what described here. Okay. The supreme truth exists both internally and externally. Internally in our body as well as externally, moving in all the moving living entities, also on the non-moving entities. He is beyond the power of material sense to see or to. Although far, far away, he is also near to us. We might think that when we are offering prasadam to him, how will he eat? Because his senses are not like our material senses. Even if he's far away, the minute you offer, he is always ready to accept it. It's only ready to accept your love and devotion. Okay. He is also near to all. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva cha stitam bhuta bhartata ne. Although super soul appears to be divided among all beings, it's never divided. It's situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops. It says no in the last 11th chapter that is Kala, is the Kalosmi, that everything is the annihilator, and everything goes back into his womb. And again it gets created. Okay, where it is develops. He creates, annihilates, and he maintains. It's like the sun is there. When you can perceive the sun by its rays, isn't it? We are the small spiritual sparks. But he's there, he's one, and you can see the sunshine everywhere. You can feel the sunshine in whole thing. You can feel the presence. That's how he appears to be divided among all beings, but he's never divided. He's there, and he's there in all the living entities, the plants, the ant, Brahma, Lord Brahma, demigods, all, and even the demons, every living entity, he's there. Okay? He's maintaining all, moving and non-moving, he said. Okay? Maintainer of things. So, is undivided, is one, or appears divided, but is situated as one. Although maintainer of all living entities, he devours and develops. That is, he annihilates and creates the whole thing. Okay. And his effulgence is so bright, is that he source of light in all luminous objects, is beyond the darkness of matter, is unmanifested. He is the knowledge, and knowledge is something which you understand. It is not something, like it can be attained and within, but we are not the origin of the knowledge. Knowledge is there. If we can access to it, then we get to know about it. Otherwise, we don't get it. Either we access the knowledge or we don't access the knowledge. So knowledge is there, like, about the man, about the knowledge on how the plant grows or any material knowledge, it's there. Unless we go and learn it, then we get an access to that particular knowledge. So we are not the origin of the knowledge. We don't create the knowledge. It's there. That's what knowledge is. The Lord gives the knowledge. He is the one, now, goal of knowledge, object of knowledge. Okay. He is situated in everyone's heart. So he is a source. In all luminous substance is beyond darkness of matter, is unmanifest. Object of no goal of situated in everyone's heart. So that's the field of activities, the body, knowledgeable, novel, have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to knowledge. I think everyone knows about this picture. This is given from Upanishads, where this body is the tree. Okay. On this tree, we have two things. One is the soul and the super soul. Okay. So these two birds are residing on this tree, where one bird is just watching the other. So this bird, second bird, is moving from one branch to the other branch, trying to taste the fruits. It's not looking up at all. It's not looking towards the Lord. It is only going from one branch to the other branch, and if it does not satisfied with this tree, then it goes to another tree. That means it takes another body. Here, what does it do? It once it tastes on fruit and it doesn't like it, and it thinks maybe the other fruit is nice, so it hops to another fruit, and then it keeps on hopping around. So it is trying to sense gratification. So these are the activities. Once he turns his mind towards the Lord, then he can understand that he is not this body, and his goal is to go back. And this bird is simply watching. So this is the super soul which is there in all our body. Even when he goes to another tree, it's already there. Super soul is not that he is separate. He is pervading, existing in every living thing. So the field of activities, knowledge, and the noble have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. Okay, attain to my nature. So this is the science he is describing in this chapter. Qualification to understand Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnana, and Niyam is clearly given here. Who understands completely is the devotees. If you want to understand, you have to take the shelter of a master. First field of activities, knower of the field is the soul and super soul. And what is the knowledge? as the process of acquiring knowledge, we understood the cultivation of these qualities, and object of knowledge is the Lord. So, that only a devotee can understand this relationship between the body and the soul and the super soul. Knowledge means understanding oneself in Krishna consciousness and realizing Krishna in everything. That means the soul is everywhere, is pervading in everything. And preliminary stage of understanding serves practice. Knower, Vijnana means knower, noble. Process of knowledge, knowing is called science of knowledge or the Vijnana. So conclusion is, now here Krishna had explained the soul and the super soul as the noble, and super soul is the ultimate object to be known. Okay. So this is something we keep going round and round, but if you slowly read it and reflect on it, you can really understand. All you have to know is keep two pictures in your mind. One is that the farmer, the king, and the field. The other picture is the two birds and a tree. So that we'll understand that where are we and what is that knowledge we need to understand and who is the object, that is soul and the super soul, Jiva and Paramatma. So once he talked about knowledge, what is the true knowledge, Nyaya, now he's explaining Purusha and the Prakriti and the Purusha, enjoyer and their union. Okay. So material nature and the living entity should be understood to be beginningless. So this is something we all should understand. That is, we have been there eternal. Soul is always there. It is, we don't know when we got into this body or when we came into this material world. We don't know. Which is it eternal? Material nature is eternal. It is there. It either gets it comes manifested. If it is not manifested, it is in the womb of the Mahavishnu. That's what we understood from the Mahatattva. If it is manifested, then we see the material nature, we see the material cosmos world, and the living entities are also manifested. If not, they go back to the. If they are liberated, then they go to the spiritual world. Otherwise, they are either in the womb of the Lord or in the material world. So they have been there eternally. This eternality we have to understand. So there is no need to understand when did it start or when did we come to this material world. It's not necessary. Otherwise, Krishna would have talked about it. So only thing we need to understand is we are eternal and we are in this process, time and timeless. Yeah, the very fact we are in this material world shows that we are in this process, eternal. So their transformation and the modes of matter are the products of the material nature. So actually the soul is transcendental. It is a superior energy, right? Because we desire to enjoy independent of Krishna, because of our desires, then he has to put it into the material world. If you have to be in the material world, then we need to have the material body and the material mind. We need, that is the gross body and the subtle body we need to have to exist here, right? And that's how, and it could be in any form. It could have been in the form of a fish, or it could be in the form of a lion or an ant, or it could be as a demigod, or it could be the demons as a man or anything. So in any form. So that transformations, I think, are the products of the material. It all depends upon our desire and the karmic. And once we have the karmas, past karmas and the mentality we had, we get that particular form, that particular body and that particular mind. So if we have got the body of a lion, then we are bound by that law of nature. We get in that consciousness. So once you get that body and that thing, you are bound by that law of nature. You can't change that nature once you have got that particular body, right? Again, then you go to another body. Only when you go to another body, you get a different mentality. But these are bound by nature. Only when you come to human form, your consciousness is much at higher level than the others. And that is the form from which you can aspire for liberation, because you can try to understand the Lord and understand the purpose only in the human form. Otherwise, you can't. If you are in these forms, you cannot understand. Only in the human form, you can understand. Your conscious level are at a higher level. Okay. So the Krishna says material nature and living entity should be understood to be beginningless. That is first thing. Then these transformations are the products of the material nature. So the material nature gives you as per your desire. Nature is said to be the cause of all the material activities and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyments because it desired, it is initiated. Okay, so soul initiated it because it's desire and thing. And because it initiates, it starts with the desire, then the super soul will sanction it and it gets manifested through the material nature. So that's how we get that particular body and the mind, right? And because we actually soul is super, but once it works through the mind, it gets controlled by the nature of that particular mind. It has type of mind it got and type of body. Okay. So then it has to work accordingly. It will be under that energy. So that's the cause of sufferings and enjoyments. It will either have the enjoyment or, and while because of the experiences and because of these sufferings, enjoyment, it will develop some more desires and it can have certain kind of immortality, and it will, depending on that activity in that particular body and mind, it will get another one. Okay. So that's what Vijay living, it follows the way of life according to the three modes. And desire to enjoy forges the bond between the Purusha and the Prakriti. Purusha is the enjoyer, Prakriti is the nature. Association with the material nature leads to different good and evil among various species. Okay, if you associate with the mode of goodness, you will slowly cultivate that particular mode. Otherwise, you are in the mode of passion. Yet in this body, there is another transcendental enjoyer who is the Lord. He is the supreme proprietor who exists as an overseer and permitter and who is known as a superseer. So, Bhakta Paramatma Iti. That means he is the proprietor. Okay. And he is the overseer. And we think no one knows what is, but he being inside us, he can even understand our desire. Just like so, that's why he knows our desire. And he knows our past and he knows our future also, and he knows our present. He is the proprietor, overseer and permitter. Unless the sanction of the soul, super soul is there, we won't get that particular body. Okay. So everything depends on him. He is the super soul. So this is the interaction, how philosophy concerning the material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature. And we can, if you understand this philosophy clearly, how we interact with the matter and how they were caught in the modes of nature, and then how to attain, then we'll understand that we need, for liberation, we need to come out of this bodily concept. Unless we turn our mind, our consciousness towards the Lord, then only then we can come out of this material nature. So knowledge of truly understanding the relationship will result in liberation and return to the spiritual world. What is the purpose of knowledge? To understand how living entity has fallen into this material world in a precarious condition. How to understand our position. So now Krishna continues to say how we can understand this situation. So we understood now how we have come into this world. We have been beginningless and because of our desire, and how the soul doesn't interact with the... Okay? Just 1 minute, let me... Hare Krishna. So the super soul is perceived by some through meditation, by some through cultivation of knowledge, by others through working without fruitive desires. So how do we get this knowledge? How do we can perceive that Paramatma is there? By meditating on the thing like that Hatha Yoga, no? They do Ashtanga Yoga process, and we can, or we can by Jnana Yoga, otherwise by Vishkama Karma Yoga. Slowly we can perceive that you can presence of the super soul. Okay. Various stuff. There are two classes of conditional souls who are faithful in spiritual life. So by dhyana, Dhyana Yoga, that means Ashtanga Yoga, they try to perceive meditate on the super soul who is there in our heart. Or through Sankhya Yoga, try to understand the knowledge, Jnana Yoga. Or working without fruitive desires. There are other class who are atheists who don't understand, who don't have any sense of spiritual understanding. And their doctrine of monism, that they are all the same. But devotees of the Lord are best situated in spiritual understanding because they know that beyond the material nature are the spiritual world and super personality of Godhead who expands as Paramatma. Because we have this understanding that there is a Paramatma inside us, there is super soul, we are not the body, then we can understand the thing, through understand the Lord. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the birth. So even if you have not have the knowledge, even if you have not think, or you don't know how to do the meditation process, because it's very difficult to try to control your senses and all that. And Karma Yoga, Nishkama Karma. Others, there are people who just hearing about it from others, their tendency to hear from authorities, they transcend the path. So this is the best example is our Devayuti, who started hearing about the Lord from her son, who is a thing from him. Then hearing about him, she was able to transcend the path of birth and death. Okay, so Prabhupada writes very nice in this, but that's all the purports are nice, but I didn't go through them much. But this purport, I thought you all can read this. Hare Krishna. Anyone volunteer? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Chandrika Mataji or Sanjay Prabhuji? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, Hare Krishna. This verse is particularly applicable to modern society because in modern society, there is practically no education in spiritual matters. Some of the people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic or philosophical, but actually there is no knowledge of philosophy. As for the common man, if he is a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement by hearing. This hearing process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who Lord Chaitanya, who Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing because if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress. Especially, according to Lord Chaitanya, if he hears the transcendental vibrations Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, it is stated therefore that all men should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. The worship of the Supreme Lord will then undoubtedly take place. Lord Chaitanya has said that in this age, no one needs to change his positions, but one should give up the endeavor to understand the absolute truth by speculative reasoning. One should learn to become the servant of those who are in knowledge of Supreme Lord. If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, hear from him about self-realization and follow in his footsteps, one will be gradually elevated to the position of a pure devotee. In this verse particularly, the process of hearing is strongly recommended, and this is very appropriate. Although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers, faithful hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back to Godhead, back to home. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. So here, Krishna himself is saying that just hearing from the tendency to hear from authority itself, it will help you to transcend the path of birth and death. So Hare Krishna Mahamantra is very transcendental vibration. Just why Prabhupada was, he just preached the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra because it is a transcendental vibration. Hearing that slowly and hearing about the scriptures, about the Lord from the people who are knowledgeable, who will think, then you will slowly can transcend the thing. And you don't have to change your position. It doesn't say, like Chaitanya Prabhu used to tell people, don't leave your place. Just don't think, change your thing and become sannyas or you follow me. No. You just do the chanting of Hare Krishna Mantra and be in your place and talk about Krishna Katha. I mean, hear about Krishna Katha. Just hearing and the chanting, that's all you have to do for in this Kali Yuga. So he says that is thing enough to follow in his teaching. So if you can take the shelter of a pure devotee and hear from him about self-realization and follow in his steps, they will gradually elevate to the position of a pure devotee. So the process of hearing is very strongly recommended. And this is what Prabhupada did, and this ISKCON also was propagating this. And most of the followers, they just took the shelter of the pure devotee and heard from him about Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, about self-realization, and followed in his steps, and followed his instructions, and regulative principles, and wisdom, and things, and they took up the sadhana. So in hearing from him, hearing the scriptures, and hearing and following the devotional services, whatever was given by from the pure devotee, the instructions from the master, they were able to take up to go back to Godhead. Okay, become pure devotees. That's the position. They didn't change their position. We didn't ask them to change. So this process of hearing is what is being given for Kali Yuga. Okay. And then comes to vision of knowledge. So shall we? Okay, we'll finish up this. It doesn't take much. So one who can see super soul, living entities, and material nature in the proper perspective. That means we are seeing through the eyes of knowledge. So this is the perception one should have. Once we understand the relationship between the soul, the jiva, and the material nature in the proper way, and then means we have the proper knowledge. We have the vision. But that is whatever we see in the existence, whether it's moving and moving, is only a combination of field of activities and the knower of the field. Okay, we are in the prison house. Spiritual realization can distinguish between spirit and matter in all circumstances. Okay, whether it is moving matter, non-moving, whatever we see in existence, it's a combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. Okay, I think I missed out. Okay, yeah. So one who sees accompanied in all bodies and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul is ever destroyed actually sees. He is always there, whether you are in ant or in Brahma or in whatever species you have taken, whatever the body you have taken, the form, the super soul is there with you. He never left you. So that's what we need to understand. Once you understand this, that means you have actually seen. Industry always accompany the industry in all bodies is the actual seeing. And how do we understand this possible? Only by association. If we associate with devotees, we have the sadhu sangha, then you can still get the perception properly. Proper perspective. What is the thing? Proprietor. Who is the proprietor? The soul is the knower and the super soul is the friend of the soul. Is the permitter. So, in every living, everything does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus, he approaches the transcendental destination. So, what is to do? The mind is what we have to change. Current. What is the current situation? He says is different than the man thing. Okay. So, what is the role of mind? Now it is addicted to sense gratification. Because of a sense gratification, we are bound in this living world and we are taking birth after birth. So, if we slowly raise our consciousness, mind turn towards the super soul, then we become advanced in spiritual life. Then you can approach the destination. So it's all left with the mind. With the mind, if you slowly shift your consciousness towards the Lord, towards the super soul, and then we can advance. Otherwise, you are stuck in this prison house. So that's what Prabhu Krishna said. This is the actual seer. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created by material nature, sees the self, does nothing actually sees. That because It is the thing. When a sensible man sees to see different identities due to different material bodies, he sees how beings are expanded everywhere. He attains the Brahman. I mean, the same thing is repeated. You might think, why is he repeating a thing? But sometimes you have to repeat it and have to give it from all angles. Only then we can understand this truth. Okay? Because the soul doesn't do. Actually, through the body, through the mind, it gets the activities done. Okay? So said the soul doesn't do. When does he attain Brahman concentration? When he is purified. When his consciousness is towards the Lord. Then he can perceive the Lord in everywhere. Perceive the super soul there. Absence of any material differentiation because of different bodies. How things are expanded. Those with a vision of eternity can see that impersonal soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with material body, the soul neither does nothing nor is entangled. Only when you come to that consciousness, then he gives a nice analogy. Krishna, the sky due to its subtle nature does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. See, the sky is everywhere, right? It doesn't mix anything, but it's still there. Similarly, soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. Okay? So he gives a nice analogy saying like the sky which is there everywhere, it doesn't mix in with anything. It is all everywhere. Same way the soul is also like that. Doesn't mix. It only sun alone illuminates all this universe. So does a living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire by consciousness. Oh, unless the soul is there, you are not consciousness. So that only will illuminate this. You can perceive all your senses, right? So same way, just like the sun illuminates the universe, so soul illuminates the consciousness. One who knowingly sees this difference between body and the owner of body can understand the process of liberation from this bondage. Others, we are stuck to this body. We think the body is what is our reality, and we don't understand there's something beyond that. We don't go beyond our thing. If you want to go supreme goal, then we have to cut from this material. So by explaining this relationship between the body, the soul, and the thing, the Lord is telling us how to go back. Seeing with eyes of knowledge, difference between body and the knower of the body, process of liberation from bondage in material nature. The result is we go back to the Supreme. So that's how we understood all these 6 questions which Arjuna asked, is to understand this clearly, the relationship which we have with the material world through our body. And who is there with us? Soul and the super soul. We know that. And the knowledge is we to understand that we have to go back to the Lord. And the process is how to, by devotional service, by cultivating the devotional service and taking the shelter of a spiritual master, we can understand. And these qualities which he has said, it will be cultivated automatically. And by hearing. So the hearing is another process which we learned here, which we're able to understand the Lord. Okay, vision of knowledge. It's quite complicated, but it says, because Krishna is repeating many times the same thing, but it is the make us understand how to come out of this concept of understand our relationship with the material world, how we got the transformation, transmigration, and what is the relationship, and what is our true thing, and the super soul. Okay, so with this, I will